Human beings are wired to compare themselves to others. This isn't a character flaw or a modern invention. It's deeply embedded in our evolutionary psychology. For thousands of years, survival depended on understanding one's position within the tribe. Were you stronger than the rival? Did the chief respect you? Could you compete for resources? This constant measurement was adaptive. It kept us alive. But evolution optimized us for survival in small tribes, not for thriving in modern financial systems. What once helped us navigate social hierarchies now quietly destroys our economic future. Charlie Munger understood this better than almost anyone. He spent his life studying human misjudgment, and one of his core insights was simple. Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome. The modern world has constructed a powerful incentive system that rewards comparison and punishes independent thinking. The result is entirely predictable: financial mediocrity disguised as normal life. Consider the average person's financial decisions. Very few are made from first principles. Instead, they flow from observing others: the neighbor's new car, the colleague's vacation photos, the friend's home renovation, the influencer's lifestyle. The question isn't, what do I actually need, or what serves my long-term interests? The question becomes, what are people like me supposed to have? This is social proof, one of Munger's key psychological tendencies causing human misjudgment. We assume that if everyone else is doing something, it must be correct. If everyone in your peer group leases luxury vehicles, then leasing a luxury vehicle feels like the rational choice. The behavior becomes self-reinforcing. The more people do it, the more normal it seems, the more others follow. But here's the trap. The majority is almost always wrong about money. Most people retire with insufficient savings. Most people carry debt that serves no productive purpose. Most people work decades without building real wealth. If you're making financial decisions based on what people like you do, you're statistically likely to end up where they end up, which is usually not where you want to be. Modern technology has amplified this impulse beyond anything our ancestors faced. Social media isn't just a window into others' lives. It's a curated highlight reel designed to trigger comparison. Every scroll delivers evidence that someone, somewhere, is doing better than you. Better vacations, better homes, better bodies, better lives. The feed never shows the debt, the anxiety, the fragility behind the facade. It only shows the signal you're programmed to respond to. This is what success looks like. Are you measuring up? The workplace reinforces this constantly. Corporate culture thrives on relative status, titles, office size, compensation. All are designed to be compared. You don't evaluate your salary based on whether it meets your needs and goals. You evaluate it relative to your peer group. This is by design. Companies know that people will work harder and tolerate more for relative status than for absolute wealth. Consumer culture completes the trap. Advertisers don't sell products, they sell identity and status. The luxury car commercial doesn't emphasize transportation efficiency. It emphasizes what driving that car says about you relative to others. The message is clear. Buying this positions you above those who don't. Consumption becomes a language of comparison, and everyone is desperate to send the right signals. Munger often spoke about the power of incentives to shape behavior. He'd say, never, ever think about something else when you should be thinking about the power of incentives. The incentive structure of modern life is brutally clear. Compare yourself constantly, signal your status through consumption, and maintain your position in the social hierarchy. The reward is approval, belonging, and the brief dopamine hit of feeling adequate. The punishment for opting out is social discomfort, questioning, and being labeled as different. But here's what makes this a trap rather than just a bad habit. The incentive system is designed to benefit everyone except you. Companies profit when you buy things to signal status. Banks profit when you borrow to keep up appearances. Social media platforms profit from your engagement, which is maximized by triggering comparison. The entire economic system is structured to extract wealth from people who make decisions based on relative positioning rather than absolute logic. Munger also emphasized reciprocity, the tendency to feel obligated to return favors. In the context of social comparison, reciprocity manifests subtly but powerfully. When your peer group engages in certain consumption patterns, you feel social pressure to reciprocate. They buy nice gifts, you feel obligated to match. They take expensive trips, you feel pressure to do the same. Reciprocity transforms what should be independent financial decisions into social obligations. The real danger is that this all feels completely normal. Nobody wakes up thinking, "Today I'll destroy my financial future through social comparison." Instead, it happens through 1,000 small decisions that seem reasonable in the moment. A slightly nicer car than you need. A home in a better neighborhood than required. Vacations that stretch the budget. Gifts that signal generosity. Each decision in isolation seems harmless, but they compound. And compounding is exactly where Munger's thinking becomes devastating. He understood that compound interest is the most powerful force in finance, but it works in both directions. Just as good decisions compound into wealth, bad decisions compound into financial fragility. Every dollar spent on comparison-driven consumption is a dollar that can't compound into future freedom. The opportunity cost is invisible in the moment, but enormous over decades. The person who spends an extra $500 monthly to maintain appearances isn't just losing $6,000 per year. Over 30 years, invested with modest returns, that's not $180,000. It's potentially $500,000 or more. But they never see this cost. They only see the immediate social benefit of not falling behind. This is why Munger insisted on thinking in terms of incentives, psychology, and long-term consequences. The impulse to compare isn't your fault. It's human nature. But understanding how this impulse is manipulated by the incentive structures around you is the first step toward escaping the trap. The question isn't whether you feel the pull of comparison. Everyone does. The question is whether you'll let that pull determine your financial future. The insidious nature of comparison-driven financial decisions is that they don't feel like mistakes. They feel like keeping up with normal life. But Munger taught us to invert, to ask not just how do I succeed, but how do I guarantee failure? And if you want to guarantee financial mediocrity, simply let social comparison guide your spending for a few decades. The destruction happens gradually, which is precisely why it's so effective. Nobody makes one catastrophic decision. Instead, they make dozens of seemingly reasonable choices that, in aggregate, ensure they'll never build real wealth. Consider the typical progression. You graduate, get a job, and suddenly you're earning real money for the first time. What happens next? You look around. Your college friends are getting apartments in certain neighborhoods, buying certain cars, wearing certain clothes. The message is clear. This is what people at your income level do. So you do it too. The first apartment is slightly more expensive than necessary, but it's in the right area, and everyone you know lives somewhere similar. The cost difference seems small, maybe $300 extra per month. Over a decade, that's $36,000, not counting what that money could have earned if invested. But you never calculate this. You only see that you're living where people like you live. Then comes the car. You don't need a luxury vehicle, but leasing one becomes standard in your peer group. The monthly payment seems manageable, $500, maybe $600. Everyone justifies it the same way. You work hard, you deserve it, and besides, everyone else has a nice car. What they don't see is the opportunity cost. That $600 monthly, invested over a working lifetime, represents not just the money spent, but the compound growth that money could have generated. We're talking about the difference between retirement comfort and retirement anxiety, sacrificed for the feeling of not falling behind. Munger's model of inversion is devastating here. Ask yourself, what's the surest way to stay middle class forever? Simple. Spend every dollar you earn trying to look like you're doing well. Let your consumption rise exactly in pace with your income. Maintain the appearance of success while building nothing beneath it. This is precisely what most people do, and the incentive structure ensures it continues. As your income rises, your peer group changes. Suddenly you're around people who live in larger homes, vacation in better places, send their kids to private schools. The comparison baseline shifts upward, and your consumption shifts with it. This is lifestyle inflation, but it's driven not by greed, but by the fundamental human need to not feel inferior to one's reference group. The psychological cost of opting out feels immediate and real. If everyone in your office drives luxury cars and you drive a 10-year-old Toyota, you feel it every day. The judgment, subtle or explicit, the questions about whether you're doing okay financially, the concern that you're being left behind. These social costs are vivid and present, but the financial cost of opting in is abstract and distant. You don't feel poorer when you lease an expensive car. You feel successful. The actual cost, the wealth you're not building, the freedom you're not creating, the options you're eliminating, exists only in a future you can't yet see. This is why Munger emphasized the concept of opportunity cost so heavily. Every financial decision isn't just about what you're buying. It's about what you're not buying with that money, including your future freedom. The person spending $50,000 on a luxury car isn't just buying a vehicle. They're selling years of their future labor. They're trading time they could eventually have free for status they temporarily display. But the comparison trap makes this invisible. You don't compare your car to your future freedom, you compare it to your colleague's car. The framing determines the decision, and the framing is always relative, never absolute. Munger also understood that humans are terrible at understanding compound effects, especially negative ones. We intuitively grasp that saving money compounds into wealth. What we don't grasp is that comparison-driven spending compounds into fragility. Every decision to spend based on social comparison does three things simultaneously. First, it removes capital that could have compounded. Second, it often creates ongoing obligations, car payments, higher insurance, maintenance costs, the need to maintain a certain image. Third, it raises your baseline expectations, making it harder to scale back later. This creates a ratchet effect. Lifestyle easily ratchets up, but almost never ratchets down. Once you've established yourself in a certain consumption class, reducing feels like failure. Your identity becomes tied to maintaining appearances. You become financially trapped not by necessity, but by ego. The mathematics of this trap are brutal. Let's say someone earns $100,000 annually. After taxes, they take home perhaps $70,000. If they save and invest 20%, $14,000 yearly, compounding at 8% over 30 years, they'll accumulate roughly $1.7 million. That's financial independence. But if social comparison drives them to save only 5%, $3,500 yearly, they'll accumulate only about $430,000. The difference? Over $1.2 million. That's the cost of normalcy. That's the price of making decisions based on what people like them are supposed to do. Munger would ask, Is the temporary comfort of fitting in worth permanent financial fragility? Is avoiding awkward questions from peers worth sacrificing decades of future freedom? Most people never ask these questions because the framing doesn't occur to them. They're too busy comparing. The real tragedy is that the people engaging in this behavior aren't stupid or lazy. They're responding rationally to the incentive structure around them. The immediate reward for conforming is social comfort. The immediate cost of independence is social friction. The long-term consequences are invisible until it's too late to change course easily. This is how comparison destroys wealth in silence, not through one big mistake, but through a lifetime of small, socially approved decisions that ensure you'll work longer, stress more, and have fewer options than you could have had. The trap isn't that you're weak. The trap is that you're human, and the system is designed to exploit exactly that. Charlie Munger didn't become wealthy by following the crowd. He became wealthy by thinking independently and having the courage to act on that thinking, even when it meant social discomfort. This wasn't just his investment philosophy, it was his entire approach to life, including personal finance. One of Munger's most repeated principles was simple: I'm not entitled to have an opinion on this subject unless I can state the arguments against my position better than the people who support it. This intellectual rigor extended to every domain, including how one thinks about money and consumption. If you asked Munger whether you should buy a luxury car to keep up with colleagues, he wouldn't moralize about materialism. He'd ask you to articulate both sides. What's the argument for buying it? Social comfort, professional signaling, personal enjoyment. What's the argument against? Opportunity cost, financial fragility, independence sacrificed. Now, which argument is stronger when viewed over a lifetime? The problem most people face isn't that they lack information. It's that they lack independence of thought. They've outsourced their financial decision-making to their peer group without realizing it. The question isn't what do I value, but what am I supposed to value? And that distinction makes all the difference. Real wealth, the kind that provides genuine freedom, requires thinking differently than the majority. This is uncomfortable. Humans are social creatures. We're wired to seek approval and avoid rejection. Going against the grain triggers anxiety. Munger understood this, but he also understood that temporary social discomfort is a small price to pay for permanent financial freedom. Consider what independence of thought means in practice. It means driving a modest car while your peers lease luxury vehicles and accepting the silent judgment that comes with it. It means living below your means in a society that equates consumption with success. It means saying no to social pressure regularly and consistently. It means enduring the question, why are you being so cheap, without feeling the need to justify yourself. This is hard. It goes against every social instinct we have. But Munger would point out that difficulty doesn't make something wrong. Often, it's precisely the difficult path that leads somewhere worthwhile. The easy path is crowded, and the crowd usually ends up in the same place, financially mediocre, dependent on continued employment, and unable to retire comfortably. Munger's approach was to flip the script entirely. Rather than asking, how can I afford this? He would ask, what does owning this cost me in real terms? And the real cost isn't the price tag. It's the time, freedom, and opportunity you trade away. A $50,000 car for someone earning $100,000 annually represents roughly a year of gross income, perhaps 15 to 18 months of after-tax income if they're saving aggressively. That's 18 months of your life, converted into a depreciating asset that serves primarily to signal status. Munger would look at that trade and see it for what it is. Trading years of freedom for temporary approval from people whose opinion shouldn't matter. But here's the crucial insight. The people who judge you for living below your means are usually financially fragile themselves. They're trapped in the same comparison cycle, and your independence threatens the narrative they've built to justify their own choices. Your used car is a silent accusation that their luxury lease might be unnecessary. Your modest home suggests that their expensive house might be ego, not need. Your contentment with less implies that their consumption might not actually be buying happiness. This is why opting out is uncomfortable. You're not just making a personal choice. You're challenging an entire system of social validation that others depend on. Munger's partner, Warren Buffett, famously lived in the same modest house for decades, drove old cars, and avoided lifestyle inflation despite being one of the richest people on earth. This wasn't because they were cheap, it was because they understood that real wealth isn't what you own, it's what you don't need to own to feel successful. The path to financial independence, then, isn't complicated. Munger would reduce it to a few principles. First, understand your own psychology. Recognize the impulse to compare. Don't pretend you're above it, you're not. But awareness creates choice. When you feel the pull to spend based on what others have, you can pause and ask whether this serves your actual goals or just your ego. Second, invert the problem. Don't ask how to get rich. Ask how to guarantee you'll stay poor. The answer is obvious. Spend everything you earn, let lifestyle inflate with income, make decisions based on peer comparison, prioritize short-term status over long-term freedom. Now do the opposite. Third, accept that independence has a price. That price is temporary social discomfort. You will be judged. People will wonder if you're doing okay. Some will think you're strange. This is the cost of admission to financial freedom. Pay it willingly. Fourth, focus on what compounds. Every dollar you don't spend on comparison-driven consumption is a dollar that can compound into future freedom. The difference between financial independence and lifelong employment is usually just 10 to 20% of income, consistently invested over decades. That's it. That's the margin between freedom and fragility. Fifth, redefine success. Success isn't having what others have. Success is having what you actually want, unconstrained by what others think. Munger measured his success by his independence, his intellectual curiosity, his relationships, and his freedom to spend time as he chose. None of that required impressing anyone. The final insight is this: financial independence and intellectual independence are inseparable. You cannot build real wealth while letting others dictate your values and spending. The same mental independence required to think clearly about investments is required to think clearly about personal consumption. Munger would leave you with a simple question. 20 years from now, would you rather have the status symbols that impressed people today or the freedom to live life on your own terms? Because you almost certainly cannot have both. The resources are finite. The choice is yours. Most people never consciously make this choice. They drift into comparison-driven consumption and wake up decades later wondering why they're still financially fragile, despite working hard their entire lives. The trap is invisible until you see it, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you understand the trade you're making, temporary approval for permanent dependence, the choice becomes clear. Think independently, live deliberately, build freedom. Everything else is just noise.